All righty. Well, here we are. It's week number 8, and we are in Numbers 12 to 14. And we'll be looking at um, Aaron and Miriam getting upset at Moses, and then the spies going into the land, and then the people's response to the spies' report. So, um, so chapter 12 is short, and so that's why it's read all in one day. But Aaron and Miriam are jealous of Moses. And I think they have a couple of reasons why they're jealous of Moses. But the first one is that they speak against him because of the Cushite woman whom he had married. And the Cushite is another term for Ethiopian. Um, and so this is a woman who would not be an Israelite um, per se. Um, and so that's the first thing. And then they go on to wonder about whether or not God has only spoken through Moses, and asking the question of, has he not spoken through us also? So there's this wondering in their hearts about what's going on with this marriage that he has, and then also with whether or not the Lord is only using Moses to speak to the people. Up to this point, usually when when Moses meets with God, or when God meets with Moses, it's happening at the tent of meeting. And the only other person that is specified as to having any kind of interaction there is Joshua, but he doesn't go in the meeting tent. He just kind of stands outside. Um, and and Miriam hasn't really appeared since the Red Sea, right after they crossed over the Red Sea. She hasn't really made much of an appearance. Aaron has, that whole golden calf thing, and so he's got that in his corner.
Well, how come Aaron keeps getting a pass? I mean, he gets another pass on this one.
Right, he does. He does indeed. You know, um, so I wonder if there's I wonder how much there is the looking forward and looking back part of the construction of this and the writing of it. If uh, if the promise was, okay, the priesthood goes to the descendants of Aaron, then we're going to keep it alive, and yes, we're going to tell that, yeah, he messed up, and yeah, he talked back to Moses and questioned whether Moses should be the leader or whatever. Um, but the priesthood still runs through his lineage, so we got to keep that in there. Um, I don't know if it's that, or if, again, um, there's just if they just have a short memory and they're like, okay, you know, I don't know. So yeah, so they're upset. So the Lord responds to Aaron and Miriam, and basically he calls a powwow. He says, "Okay, y'all come over here. We're going to meet at the tent of meeting." And the Lord comes down in the pillar of cloud, and he calls Miriam and Aaron. And they both come forward, and he says, "Hear my words." This is verse 6 in chapter 12. "When there are prophets among you, I, the Lord, make myself known to them in visions. I speak to them in dreams. Not so with my servant Moses. He is entrusted with all of my house. And when I speak with him face to face, clearly, not in riddles, and he beholds the form of the Lord. Why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses?" And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. So, so the Lord turns right back on them to say, when I speak through a prophet, it's through riddles, it's through parables, it's through some kind of coded language, but he speaks directly to Moses in a way that Moses can clearly then pass that message along to the people. So, the whole giving of the Torah, all of that, it wasn't done in visions and dreams. It was done face to face, clearly written out kind of things. And so the Lord is angry with them. And again, this whole idea of the anger was kindled against them, and then he leaves. And as the cloud departs, Miriam is leprous, and her skin is white and flaky, and it's a leprous, leprosy is this it's a catch-all word for various skin diseases. In biblical times, nobody's really sure exactly what it is, but they knew that something had changed with her. And so Aaron responds back. This is in verse 11. It says, "Oh, my Lord, do not punish us for a sin that we have so foolishly committed. Do not let her be like one stillborn, whose flesh is half consumed when it comes out of its mother's womb." And then Moses joins in on the chorus, and he says, "Oh God, please heal her." But then the Lord speaks to Moses, not to Aaron or to Miriam. He speaks to Moses and says, "If her father had but spit in her face, would she not bear her shame for 7 days? Let her be shut out of the camp for 7 days. After that, she may be brought in again." And so Miriam is shut out for 7 days. And the people did not set out to march until Miriam had been brought in again. So a couple things. One is that this separation for leprosy is prescribed in Leviticus. If you go back and you read about various skin diseases, there's a period of separation that, sort of you get quarantined for a while, and if everything's okay, then you can come back in, you can be declared clean. So that seems to be what's going on here. But notice that Miriam is not left behind. It's not like they put her out of the camp and then move on and you never see her again. They don't go anywhere until she's brought back into the camp, until she's restored into the camp. And so then it's not until she's back that they set out from Hazeroth and they head off to the wilderness of Paran. So there we go. So question 3 is a why do you think kind of question. What do you think is truly behind Aaron and Miriam speaking out in this way? I mean, if you have a Bible that has section headings, obviously this one leads you towards Aaron and Miriam being jealous of Moses. But I asked the question, are they jealous or are they just confused about how God works through both them and Moses? And so this is a question you can ask your group and see what they think, and see if they can come up with things that might be at stake for them. I have a couple of ideas. I think that they want some FaceTime. They want to be sort of, the person or persons that are also known to have spoken with God and to have met with God, and then get to represent that back to the people. Again, despite the things that, the places where Aaron has stuck his foot in his mouth or, stumbled along the way. So I think they may either want FaceTime with God, or they may want some more recognition as being leaders among the Israelites. But I bet your groups can come up with some more ideas about that as well. Any other questions about chapter 12? Oh. Okay. All right. Chapter 13 is have the spies. So question 4 is about comparing the Lord's instructions to the spies, which is in verses 1 and 2, and Moses's instructions to the spies, which is in 17 through 20. And just what's the difference there? So the Lord's instructions are send some men to spy out the land, to just explore and see what's there. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward there, kind of open-ended. Moses's instructions, however, are quite detailed. It's go up from there into the Negev, then go into the hill country. The Negev is another term for sort of the desert surrounding the Canaanite region. Then the hill country, see what the land is like, whether there's people who live in there, and the people who are they strong or weak? Are they few or many? Is the land good or bad? Are the towns unwalled or are they fortified? Whether the land is rich or poor, whether there are trees or not. And then be bold and bring back some fruit from the lands. So it's this, really detailed kind of figure out what's going on in this land, figure out what the people are like, figure out basically what kind of shot do we have at taking this land over. I mean, if it boils down to, what kind of shot do we have at invading this place, taking it over, how long is this going to take, what kind of forces are we going to have to amass to get this done? And I think that that Moses's instructions begin to set the people with their eyes towards the obstacles in their way, rather than the Lord that is behind them, moving them forward. And I really think it's from, it seems like these instructions come from a place of, okay, God, I know that you're sending us here. I know that you've promised this, but it seems like he's asking the question, Moses is asking the question of, what are we going to face along the way to get there? There's, it seems like there's this sense of like, not quite sure that how everything's going to work out. So can we figure out all the details even before we go in? That's kind of what it feels like. Let's see.
So you view his Moses to be the one that gets in their way of success, and God's was an easier success.
Right. Yes. So
Okay.
I think Moses complicates the issues. His instructions are too complicated, because then they're gonna, again, when they come back, it's like, oh my goodness, they're giants and they're huge fortified walled cities, and there's so many of them, and we'll never do it. There's no possible way. So if again, hindsight, if they had gone back, if they had gone to the land with just, check it out, explore it, see what's there, and then come back and said, okay, here's what we found, that it might not have been so drastic of a, oh, we'll never do it. I think it keeps their eyes more on who's enabling them to go into the land, rather than the obstacles that are in front of them. I hope that makes sense.
That makes sense. I guess I was in the corporate world too long.
Oh,
Because a different perspective is the head of an organization is the one that tells the group what to do. The managers below that person figure out how to do it and give better marching instructions than go tear down that building versus, now we're going to go over there and we're going to tear this down, but we got to take some steps to be careful and
right.
so
Sure, sure, yeah.
I'm not sure how that impacts your two questions here, but that's my first thought was, well, Moses are better because the people have a better feel for what they're supposed to do. If you just send people over there without any more instruction than go explore, you
Mhm.
know, tell them what you're going to get back.
Right. So when we, if we were going to go all the way through to Joshua, we would compare the instructions here to the instructions that Joshua gives for the spies going into the land just before they go in to invade. So that might be a nice little side project that somebody who has lots of free time can get to.
I'll see if I can find one of those people.
Right. Okay. Now, so there are 12 men that are named as the leaders who will become the spies. 10 of which we will never hear from again, and 2 of which will continue to show up throughout the rest of the narrative. So there is from the tribe of Judah, there's Caleb, and then from the tribe of Ephraim, there's Hoshea, who's the son of Nun, and Hoshea has his name changed to Joshua, which is in verse 16. So question 5 says, what can you find out about the leader named Hoshea, son of Nun, from the tribe of Ephraim? So this is, again, his name gets changed to Joshua, and he is Moses' assistant. He's also the general. He's the one who's going to lead the charge as things progress. And it's significant. Typically, number one, biblical names have meaning. They all do. Some of them are more significant than others. Some of them are more about, like Esau, like Jacob and Esau. Jacob's name means grabber. And Esau's name means red, because he was ruddy. He had all this red hair on him. So names have meaning. So Hoshea means saves. That's what it means in Hebrew. But Joshua, or Yehoshua, that's how you pronounce it in Hebrew, means the Lord saves. And so, for somebody whose name is saves and is a general in the army, it's, you're saving, people, and you're leading the people in charge. But his name change goes to Yehoshua, which means the Lord saves. So he understands each time his name is called that whenever he's going out into battle or whatever he's doing, that it's only the Lord that is the one who's the savior. Now, Yehoshua is also the same name as another savior in the New Testament named Jesus. Jesus is the Greek version of Yehoshua. So there you go. So typically name changes happen when somebody's life changes. So Jacob gets his name changed to Israel. So he becomes, instead of the grabber, he's now wrestles with God. So after Genesis 32, which I'm sure your class will get to, Gary, at some point.
I imagine.
Got to get through the flood narrative first.
Yep.
Very good. So question 6 may give folks, or at least the first question is easy. That's 40 days. They stayed in the land of Canaan 40 days. The approximate mileage that they traveled is probably going to give folks a little bit more of a challenge, unless they have some good Bible maps in the back. But it's somewhere around 500 miles that they traverse in those 40 days. So So just so that way you have sort of an approximation. It's just the kind of the scope of everything, all the places they go.
I was using your explanation of all the quail being 24 miles was a walk a day, or 27 miles.
24,
24 miles, yeah. So I was coming up with almost twice as much as 500 miles. But I did also think about, but they're going to stay in some of these places.
Yeah.
So,
well, and
okay.
Who knows what kind of coverage they had to keep, like, they probably had to stay out of sight a little bit. So they may have had to keep to the back roads. I don't know. So, all right, number 7. So here's where the report comes in. The report of the spies to the people. It starts off good. The report starts off good. It says, let's see. They come back and they said, this is verse 27. We came to the land to which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. So, God's word comes true. That I'm sending you to a land that flows with milk and honey. And sure enough, there's milk and honey in the land. And it has this giant fruit. I can't imagine how big this cluster of grapes is that they have to carry it on a pole between two guys. I mean, that's just a massive grapes. So it starts off well. And then verse 28, yet, or but, or however, the people who live in the land are strong, and the towns are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the land of the Negev, which is sort of the desert wilderness area. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live by the sea and along the Jordan. So the short version of that is the whole land is populated with people. And not only are they, are there people everywhere, but they're huge, and they have these fortified cities. So yes, it flows with milk and honey, and it is fruitful. There's large fruit that's there, but there's a bunch of people there. So that's they begin to, so it starts off encouraging. Yes, God's word is true. There is milk and honey, big fruit, but it discourages the people because there's just all these obstacles in the way for them to get to try to get around, to take over the land. So then Caleb comes back on the scene in verse 30. Caleb quiets the people before Moses, and he says, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. So that's his response. That's his encouraging word to the people. And very quickly, the spies shut him down. Verse 31, the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against this people, for they are stronger than we. And so then, they brought the Israelites an unfavorable report, saying, the land that we have gone through as spies is the land that devours its inhabitants. All the people we saw in it are of great size. And then there's this, again, if somebody has some free time, they can do some research on the Nephilim that are here in verse 33. We saw the Nephilim, the Anakites come from the Nephilim, and to ourselves, we seem like grasshoppers, and so we seem to them. So basically, they're giants, not like, like 40 feet tall, not like Godzilla kind of, but like, 9 or 10 feet, sort of think about Goliath kind of size people. But the Nephilim are first mentioned in Genesis chapter 6, just before the flood narrative. They are sons of God, or gods that come and have relations with earth women. Anyway, it's this interesting thing that is in Genesis chapter 6. And so again, somebody with some free time can do some research on that and see what they come up with.
It sounds like the Greek myths, when the gods would come down and mate with the women, and then they would have these children who became superheroes like Hercules.
Hercules.
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely had that feel to it.
That raises a question, I guess, and that is that if the Nephilim were in 6 before the flood, why are there any of them around after the flood?
That is an excellent question, and I don't have an answer for it.
Ah, come on.
I know.
They didn't tell you that in seminary?
Nope, he didn't.
Okay.
Sorry.
It's one of those you're just not supposed to ask, I guess.
And again, it's when is everything put together, kind of thing. What's the construction of the narrative? So
They were tall enough that they could survive above the flood.
there you
There
go.
you go. There you go.
They were excellent swimmers.
They went to the tops of the mountains, and they were tall enough that they could be above the flood.
There you go.
That'll fly with a couple of people in my class, but the rest of them are going to go, ain't no way.
You have to be convincing, Gary.
Yeah, well,
Right. Gotta sell it.
it's hard to be convincing when you're not convinced, but
Right. All righty. Chapter, anything else about 13? Okay. All right, chapter 14. So now the people are going to respond to the report, and they raise a loud cry, and the people weep all night, and they begin to complain against Moses and Aaron. Aaron gets dogged in on this one. And the whole congregation said to them, "Would that we had died in the land of Egypt, or would that we had died in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and our little ones will become booty. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt?" So they said to one another, "Let us choose a captain and go back to Egypt." So they are distraught over this news. They feel like they've come so far in the last year, and now they are just going to they're like lambs led to the slaughter. All of these giants, to these people that are large, and very many live in these fortified cities, and so they form the Back to Egypt Committee. It's my way of putting it. They form the Back to Egypt Committee, and they want a new leader. They want somebody who will turn them around and go the other way. They're like, "We're done with this." And so they are not happy with this report whatsoever. So Moses, Aaron, Joshua, and Caleb all fall on their faces before the assembly of the congregation. And Joshua and Caleb tear their clothes. They say to the congregation, this is verse 7, "The land that we went through as spies is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey," which they already know is true. "Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not fear the people of the land, for they are no more than bread for us. Their protection is removed from them, and the Lord is with us. Do not fear them." But the whole congregation threatened to stone them. So Moses and Aaron and Joshua and Caleb come back to the people and say, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of these people. Don't be afraid of what God is calling us to. It's a good land. It is. It flows with milk and honey. It has everything that we need, and God is on our side. God is with us. So don't be afraid of them, because their protection has been removed. So they try to undo what the other 10 spies did to the people. The news from the 10 spies says, we can't do this. So the people weep all night, and are distraught, want to go back, come undo everything that's happened. And now, specifically Joshua and Caleb are like, no, God is with us. We can do this. We don't have to be afraid. And yet the people don't believe them. They threaten to stone them. And they just will not believe. So it's important for the continuation of their journey, because they're reminding the people, this is what God said was present in the land that he was sending us to. He also said he would be with us. And now it's a sign that not only is God with us, but also the protection of the people has been removed, so that it's not going to be a huge struggle. Although the book of Joshua kind of tells a bit of a different story. There's ups and downs and backs and forth as they go into the land and the conquest. But overall, it's, there's this, we don't have to be afraid. So at least in with this comment, but then also with Moses's intercession, it enables the people to continue on their journey. So
I don't know. I think if I was Moses by this time, I would say to the Lord, go ahead, strike them with the stick.
I'm done with them too. Yeah. Like, maybe your arm's not too short, but mine sure is.
And that's what I was thinking about. I love verse 11 because it takes me back to his arm being too short. Well, all I've done for them, and they're going to be this way.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
They treat me with contempt.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my word. I wouldn't want God on that side of the fence from me.
That's right. Yeah. So so Moses, he goes back to the Lord. They go to the tent of meeting. How long will this people despise me? How long will they refuse to believe in spite of all the signs? I'll strike them with pestilence and disinherit them. Moses says, I'll make of you, Moses, a nation greater and mightier than they. But Moses says, the Egyptians will hear of it. The inhabitants of the land will hear of it and mock you and laugh at you. So if you kill this people all at one time, this is verse 15, then the nations who have heard about you will say it was because the Lord was not able to bring his people in the land. His arm was too short. And he has given them over to slaughter in the wilderness. And then he reminds God of who God said God is. The Lord is slow to anger. The way you promised when you spoke, the Lord is slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgressions, but by no means clearing the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the parents upon the children for the third and fourth generations. So forgive the iniquity of this people according to the greatness of your steadfast love, not their faithfulness, but your steadfast love, God, just as you pardoned this people from Egypt even until now. So, and the Lord says, I do forgive, just as you have asked. Nevertheless, so there's, so yes, the people are going to be forgiven. However, there is a change that happens at this point. So Moses intercedes, convinces God not to destroy the people. God says, okay, I'm not going to destroy the people right now, but none of them, except for Joshua and Caleb, will make it into the promised land. The entire generation will pass away before they enter the land. So the future for the current generation is that they will all die in the wilderness. So it says, let's see. Verse 22, none of the people who have seen my glory and the signs that I did in Egypt and in the wilderness and yet have tested me these 10 times, specific this time.
And by the way, I have a list of those that are in the bottom of my Bible here.
Awesome.
I will try to put that together.
Okay, very good. I'm sure somebody will ask, what are the 10 times? And have not obeyed my voice. They shall see, so none of those folks shall see the land that I swore to give to their ancestors. None of those who despise me shall see it. Or that's verse 22 and 23. So there you go. Let's see, where am I at here? 11. Yep. All right. So then number 12 is, how does the Lord determine the number of years that the people will be in the wilderness to make up for their faithlessness? And I included that whole section, 26 to 35. It's really in verse 34. According to the number of the days in which you spied out the land, 40 days, for every day a year, you shall bear your iniquity 40 years. You shall know my displeasure. So they'll be there 40 years for the 40 days of spying out the land. Obviously the number 40 is a significant biblical number. It's a number of preparation, and in this particular case, it's also about the length of a generation. So the youngest person to enter into the land when Joshua leads them over the Jordan will be 40 years old by that point in time. And the oldest person will probably be somewhere around 60. I guess the oldest person will probably be around 60. I guess there's going to be more kids that are born. So, so there's just the whole generation, that 40 year. When you talk about generations biblically, it's typically 40 years. There you go. That whole generation will not see the promised land. All right, and then they get a bright idea at the end of chapter 14. They're like, hey, what if we just go up and do it anyway? Like, Joshua, Caleb said we should just go and try. So they are like, well, all right, let's just see what we do. Let's see, verse 40. They rose early in the morning and went up to the heights of the hill country, saying, here we are. We will go up to the place that the Lord has promised, for we have sinned. But Moses said, why do you continue to transgress? That will not succeed. Do not go up, for the Lord is not with you. Do not let yourselves be struck down before your enemies. For the Amalekites and the Canaanites will confront you there, and you shall fall by the sword because you have turned back from following the Lord. The Lord will not be with you. But, verse 44, they presumed to go to the heights of the hill country, even though the ark of the covenant of the Lord and Moses had not left the camp, which means the Lord was not with them. And then the Amalekites and the Canaanites who lived in that hill country came down and defeated them. So they get this, so their act of desperation is like, well, let's just go ahead and try to take it over anyway. And it's foolish because the Lord is not with them. The ark doesn't go in front of them. The presence of the Lord does not go with them. Moses doesn't go with them. And so they go into battle with no leadership whatsoever. They're just randomly going, and they get quickly repulsed and back, and possibly lose, members of that generation to death because they do that. There's no, typically in battles, there's a tally, in scriptures like we defeated, 10,000 soldiers or whatever. There's no tally of losses here, just that they got pushed back. So, but it's foolish because God's not with them. God didn't say to go do it, and they don't go with any kind of leadership. All right. What questions do you have about 14?
What you mentioned that number 4 or the number 40 is the number for preparation or of preparation.
Mhm.
What is the number 10?
I don't know that one right off the top of my head.
I've got there are approximately 10 generations listed between Adam or Seth and Noah. I can't remember if it started with Adam or it started with Seth. There are the 10 commandments. There are the 10 things, 10 times they rejected him right here. And now we're doing 10 something else. But it just seems like 10 keeps popping up too.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't know. I'll have to find out.
And I just always have to comment about my wonderful stiff-necked Jews. It always seems that their neck is stiff, going the wrong direction.
Right.
They can't seem to win a break here.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
accept a break, as the case might be.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So just a quick search. The number 10 is used 242 times in the Bible. The designation 10th is used 79 times. 10 is also viewed as a complete and perfect number, as is 3, 7, and 12. It's made up of 4, the number of the physical creation, and 6, the number of man. As such, 10 signifies testimony, law, responsibility, and the completeness of order. In Genesis 1, we find the phrase God said 10 times, which is a testimony of his creative power. God gave the 10 commandments. 10 therefore represents man's responsibility to keep the commandments. A tithe is a tenth of our earnings and a testimony of our faith in the Lord. The Passover lamb was selected on the 10th day of the first month. Let's see, day 10 of the 7th month is also the Day of Atonement. Let's see.
Okay, where are you finding all that? Is that in the book?
No, it's on BibleStudy.org. I can send you
good.
it.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's one of the 3 or 4 I use.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So looks like they have a bunch of articles about different numbers. 1 through 14, and then 17, 19, 20, 21, 30, 33, 40, 111, 222, 333, 454, 550, 777, and more. So I think it's interesting that like that 10 is so 10 is a combination of 7 and 3, 7 being days of creation, 3 being Trinity. 6 and 4. The fourth day is when the earth is populated. 6 is the day that man was made. So interesting. So there is a, let's see. There's a mention here. It says 10 generations of man lived on the earth before the floodwaters came and swept away all those who were disobedient. Noah was the 10th generation.
There we go. Yep.
And he was 600 years old when he and 7 other family members entered the ark. There you go. Maybe that'll help a little.
I don't know. Do you recall a lady by the name of Diana Lant?
Mhm.
She was in our class for a couple of years, and then she decided to start going to church with her husband instead of coming here because he preferred, if I remember right, it's a biker church.
Oh, okay.
She was like having a commentary on the Bible walk in the room. You bring up something and she could talk about it. Any of it.
Wow.
And she especially liked numbers, not
Okay.
the book.
Right.
Numbers 10,
Yeah.
7, 3, just like what you've been talking about here.
Mhm.
And there were some people in the class that thought, that's not all that important. But then again,
Mhm.
it sure looks like it's predominant throughout.
Right. Yeah, there's certain patterns in the scriptures. Numbers are one of those patterns that are easy to pick out because numbers stick out, names stick out, things like that. Sometimes it's a little, sometimes narrative patterns stick out as well. But yeah, no, it's interesting. Sometimes you can get in the weeds about those things.
Yeah.
And you just kind of run the rabbit trail and you get stuck and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. And so but there's times that those kind of those patterns can produce some fruit, and you can go, oh, that helps me understand this, and this.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anything else from this week I need to ask about?
I don't think.
Okay. All righty. Well, Gail, again, I'm glad that y'all's class is going to come back in person this week. That'll be fun. I guess y'all are going to do a hybrid situation since Ted was hooking up his laptop. So, so that'll still be an option available to y'all. So, anyway, if y'all need anything, give me a holler. I'm happy to help, and I appreciate y'all very much for everything you do. So,
Well, thank you much. Have a blessed week, both of you.
yeah, y'all too. Thanks so much.
All righty.
Bye.